Hello and welcome to experiment number 3 at the Marble Arch Caves as part of NI Science Festival 2021. This experiment is Raging Rivers, and we will be learning about how water collects on high ground and moves downhill, downstream, and how it behaves as it flows in a river. So the equipment that we will need can be found online at marblearchcaves.co.uk, and all of the materials that we can use today can be found around the house or can be replaced with other things if you need. So what we have first is a large tray to contain a river. We have some kitchen foil. We'll be making the riverbed out of that, nice and waterproof. We have various sizes of gravel. We use these for decoration, but we could also demonstrate how the size of the rocks or bed load in a river changes as it flows downstream. And we have some filling material. This is wood chips. You can use sand or gravel if you have that as well. And of course we need a bit of water, and we're using a little bit of food colouring so we can see how the water moves a little better on camera. And we also have a pair of scissors and some sticky tape. So this aluminium pan represents what we call a drainage basin. Now that is an area that is drained by one river. So every drop of rainfall that lands in this area of land, in these hills, will wind up in the same river and will end up exiting the river into the same part of the sea by the same river mouth. So this is our aluminium kitchen foil, and we'll be using this to construct our river course. Now I've already done some research on the internet and found a particular bend in the Clara River that I want to replicate. That's a local river near the Marble Arch Caves. It's the river that flows out of the cave. So I would suggest, or you need to know what kind of shape you want to make before you make it. So if you try to do a local river, or maybe a famous river, or maybe compare them, you'll be able to work out how to best do it. So we're going to start with our kitchen foil, and we're going to take a length out. Now I won't need much longer than the tray to make this river. So only about that much. Only about that much. I'm going to tear off a sheet. So this isn't really going to be holding too much water yet, so we're going to need to construct the riverbed out of this river. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half first. To get it slightly thinner, and then I'm actually going to fold it into a very long sort of triangular shape, because rivers start out quite thin, and as they get more and more water in them, they wind up a little wider. So I'm going to fold this end in a bit, at the thin end, and then the same on the bottom side. So that's the shape I've ended up with. Maybe you can see the folds on this side. So this side without the folds is going to be our smoother side. So we'll set that side up. And we want to fold the sides of the river in. So we'll start up here. We'll keep them a pretty similar height. So you can see the river course now is taking shape. Up in the hills, where it starts to form, you will see small streams, and as more water comes into the river heading downstream, the river's going to need to be bigger to hold all the water. So the river that I've made is a channel. That's the whole cross section of the river there. It'll be full up with water, and the channel is made up of the banks on either side and the riverbed. Now, at every point down the river is needing to get rid of all of the water that comes from the top of the river and also the water that comes in from the side. So that's why it's getting bigger as it goes along, because here it needs to drain all of the water from above it and also the water that's coming in, and then here needs to drain all of that plus the one that's coming in between. So the river exists in the drainage basin, but rivers are very rarely straight because water doesn't flow in a straight line and the landscape isn't straight, so the river has to move around the landscape to get past features that it can't dig its way through. So in order to put bends in our river, I'm going to take the edge and I'm going to fold them a little bit on the inside of the bend. So this will curve the course around. Put a little bend up here near the top. Crimping in the inside of the bend, take up a little bit of room. It's starting to bend like a river, like EastEnders. Give some credits to EastEnders. And the more little folds you put in, the more of a bend you'll get. So here we have the finished river. You can see it's very narrow upstream and much deeper downstream because it's accumulating water through the whole of the river length. So you can also see that there are more bends downstream. The river gets to the flatter ground. These are called meanders. So they're turns in the course of the river. So let's just check the river fits. Kind of fits, mostly fits. That's what the scissors are for. Trim it to length. Just gonna trim the excess. Do remember that all of this foil is recyclable. Maybe it started a bit uphill there. So there we go. I've got some sellotape here I prepared earlier. What we do is we roll the sellotape in a little cylinder, and we can stick sticky end to the river bed. I think the meanders are a good place to put the sticky bits. And then we can get it situated in our tin. So we're going to be adding water, but it's going to need to go somewhere. So at the mouth of the river here, very bottom, at the estuary, where the water meets the sea, we're going to need to put some holes in the tin. So I have a bit of clay here and a pencil, and we're going to press that against there so it don't put any holes in the table, and carefully poke some holes through the baking pan. Don't be afraid, you can't really put too many holes. Well, you might be able to put too many if you really try to. Alright, there we go. Got some holes in the pan. So we're now going to decorate the river. So the first stage is to put in some of these wood chips, and they represent our bedrock, the surrounding rock around the river. So we'll start packing that in. going to clear some of these wood chips out the bottom of the river. Right, so that's the surrounding landscape around the river. So as a river flows, rocks will wind up in the river, and the longer a rock is in the river, the more worn down it will be, the smaller it will be. Because of this, you tend to find the larger boulders near the source of the river, and then as it flows further downstream, they get broken up into smaller pebbles and sand and sediment. So we're going to represent this by placing some of these pebbles at various places within the river. I'll put this boulder just right at the top, just for fun. Yeah, see if the water will move it anywhere. And then as we get further down, I'm going to put a few of these wee pebbles just in there. And then as we get to the mouth, yeah. So obviously a riverbed has pebbles in it the whole way down, but you do want to be able to see how the river flows through. So I'm just going to fill it out a little bit more. So we're just going to get a bit of water ready to test our river. We have some here, but usually water is a bit clear. In our cave we have water flowing from Peatbog in Quilca Mountain, and it's picked up some other minerals, so it's actually a bit of a reddish brown colour. So the water can dissolve other minerals as it comes down through the river course. To represent this, we can use a little bit of blue food colouring, and it'll help our river show up a little bit better on the camera. So I'm just going to add a few drops of food colouring to our jar here. And probably the best thing to start with would be a spoon, but I'm going to test here. Right. And that's that ready. So let's move to the sink. Here we go. So you can see the water's moving. Pay attention to where the water's moving a bit quicker. You can see it might be moving quicker at the edges of the bends. Fast water's thrown to the outside. Right. So you can see the water finds it quite difficult to flow around all of these boulders at the top. Once it gets going, it flows more easily around the smaller pebbles at the bottom. So to show how the river can transport some pebbles, we're going to add in some lentils here and be able to see how the water flows around them and how they move. So let's try with some rice, a slightly different size and shape. Let's put it in top and see how the water moves it. So we're just experimenting with different sized bed load. We've got some peas in here that we'll see what the river does with them. Peas seem to float quite well until they get stuck. So if you pay attention to where the peas have gotten stuck at the bottom here, that's the inside of the bend where the water's actually moving a little bit slower. You can see that it's actually a bit deeper at the outside of the bend there, where the fast water is, and that's because the faster the water is, the straighter a line it travels in. So that's our final experiment as part of the NI Science Festival 2021. Thank you very much. I hope that you have learned something about how water can interact with the landscape to form various different parts of the landscape. So we've learned how minerals dissolved in the water can be deposited in the form of stalactites within the cave system. We've learned how water flowing into the ground can dissolve these minerals and create caves and sinkholes. And we've learned how water flowing across the surface can change and impact the people and landscapes living on the surface. So, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've had a great time, and feel free to share with our Facebook page any results or interesting things you find with your own experiments. Thank you very much.